The Oscars have 24 categories, some of which get a little more shine than others. Not going to copy the whole spiel from the last video, so suffice to say I like shorts. I talked about it a little bit in documentary shorts, but I want to give them a little bit more airtime where I can. So these were a little bit harder to find than the documentary shorts. I got a hold of 7 of the shortlisted nominees for the Oscar. I guess I could have also watched Once Upon a Studio or whatever, but I don't have Disney Plus, so what are you going to do? I'm going to go through from least favorite to favorite, and I will avoid spoilers except for the number 1, which I will talk about in a little more detail, because I love it. This group, I think, is better than the documentary shorts. All of these I had rated pretty well, at least. I didn't think any of these were mediocre. All of them are good to bordering on good. And there are 2 of them like I'm really pulling strong for. If either of the top 2 manage to pull off the Oscar win, I'll be ecstatic. I love the top 2 especially. All right, let's kick it off. Number 7 is Pete. This is a film about a kid who hopes to play Little League, but cannot because it's a boys' league. Gave it a 65. I like the choice of baseball as the sport for the kid. For a couple reasons. One, because it feels like, at least, here in the US, baseball is kind of like the classic kids' sport, boys' sport, I guess, growing up. I don't know what demographics are like for kids' sports these days, but at the very least, when I was growing up, the normal sport, I guess we'll say, was baseball. That was certainly the normal sport for me. So it feels very nostalgic. It feels like the most relatable sport to choose for, I guess, probably most people who are watching, if I had to guess. Maybe some places soccer or something is more familiar, but I think most people are familiar with Little League. I think that's the best choice for general appeal. And then the other one is, I like baseball just as a sport. I watch it a lot, especially in the summer. The culture of baseball is like a little bit weird. Super traditional, a lot of unwritten rules, things like that. And as such, it feels like the best sport to pick for covering this subject matter because of like the sort of resistance to change, the doing things for the sake of the way we've always done them, that kind of culture that baseball often has. So I think that's a great fit for what the film is trying to discuss. It also feels fairly relatable. Being told you're not able to do something and not able to understand the reason is a bad feeling that all of us run into from time to time, especially as kids. So I think that subject matter is kind of like an instant plus emotionally, because we can all connect with that. I think my main issue is I don't really like the animation. It feels a little bit, maybe low frame rate, a little choppy. Kind of reminds me of backyard sports, I guess. I don't know how many of you out there would have played backyard sports games. To me, it kind of reminded me of like the semi-low quality, cartoonish kind of look that I never really liked throughout this short's runtime. But it's an interesting short. It's kind of cute. It's relatable. I'd still check it out. I think it's pretty nice. Number 6, Letter to a Pig. I meant to do this video before the Oscar nominations were announced. Letter to a Pig did end up getting nominated, which I'm totally fine with. I did think this short was pretty fascinating. This is about a Holocaust survivor talking to a young classroom, and this prompts a girl to fall into a daydream in response. I think this is a 70. It's good. Of all these shorts, this might be the most interesting on a certain level. There are a few of these coming up that are quite, well, varying levels of bizarre or surprising, I'll say. But this one I think might have the most layers to it, the most to unpack. And I think that's my favorite thing about it, just kind of sorting through certain things it has to say and some of its imagery. That imagery and what it's talking about, its subject matter, I think are a great pairing. I think they complement each other very well. I don't know how well it all comes together, but I think the way it joins things together is fascinating and well worth discussing in terms of, like what it's going for meaning in certain aspects of it. It really is impressive just how many ideas it manages to get across in, I think it's 16, 17 minutes. The art style is really interesting as well. It's a combination of, I'm assuming here, a combination of like hand drawings, maybe charcoal or something like that, and some actual photography or maybe videography combined. It's a pretty bizarre art style overall, but it's eye-catching, it draws you in. Through it, they managed to highlight some distinctive features at certain points and things like that. So even though it's not particularly traditional. It's not the prettiest thing in the world either, but it is a very nice aesthetic. And I think a movie that can manage to pull off a nice aesthetic that complements the film, that's certainly something worth praising. Number 5 is Eeva. This is about a woman who seems to be struggling to handle the death of someone close to her. Gave this one a 75. I don't necessarily love the animation. I don't love all the way characters move, especially. Sometimes it feels a little bit strange. But, again, giving your short a distinctive look, as long as it's not in a bad way, which it's not, that's a plus. And also, I think it sort of works because of the surrounding material being strange. And I also like that the animation feels like it incorporates some moments, like some shots that feel pretty cinematic. There's like a nice little focus pull in one scene. There's like a classic, camera going up the stairs kind of shot. I think there might have been one more, especially cinematic thing that you get the gist of it. There is a little bit of humor in it, which is nice. It's almost hard for me to, it was almost hard for me to decide if the movie was supposed to be funny at first, because it's just like, it's very quiet, dry humor. But there's a scene in a restaurant that I think is pretty clearly meant to be humorous, even if it is still pretty dry. So I like the dry sense of humor. And there's, again, referring to that restaurant, there is a fun song in there that I really enjoyed as well. Number 4, speaking of kind of interesting, A Kind of Testament. A woman discovers animations online made in her image and seeks to find out the meaning behind them. I'm kind of bummed that this doesn't get a nomination, just because that means that not a lot more people are going to watch this. Presumably there are some number of people who are going to go through the animated short nominations just to see all the Oscars movies. And they're not going to see this one, which is unfortunate, because this movie is wild. It has maybe the most striking animation of all of these. Not because it's the highest quality or the most aesthetically pleasing. It's because it's probably the least aesthetically pleasing, to be honest. And it's just kind of fascinating. I think ultimately what it's trying to present is not that complicated, if my read on it is right. But this is kind of one of my little movie philosophies that, something doesn't have to be exceedingly original or deep, etc., in order to be a plus. As long as it's presented in a unique way, that's kind of good enough in my book. And this is certainly presented in a unique way. So I love the boldness of it, honestly. You should just check it out and watch it, because it's quite an experience. I gave it an 80. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. Number 3. Boom. 2 prehistoric birds try to protect their eggs from a volcanic eruption. In a sense, this one's kind of the opposite of A Kind of Testament. A Kind of Testament is very bold and striking and out there. And Boom, if you watch Boom, you'll probably feel like you've seen it before. To me, it strongly reminds me of Ice Age, which, maybe, honestly, it could be more of a bad thing than I'm giving it credit for. I just said, if you present something that's not original in an original way, you get bonus points in my book. I guess maybe this is not doing that. Maybe it's just presenting something that's already been done in the way it's also already been done. So I don't know, maybe I'm scoring this too high just because I like it, but I could also just be biased because I really like Ice Age, and this hits the same buttons, I think. Like, it's still got the same sort of, silly, dialogue-free kind of humor, kind of like a Scrat escapade or something like that. But to me, the main draw is the humor. I did laugh a lot throughout. I think it's got a nice sense of comedic timing. It's got a nice sense of musical timing too, I think. The score isn't anything crazy. It kind of hits the cues when you would expect it to, but everything meshes together really well, I think. This may not take many risks. I don't know if it has any one single thing that's great about it, maybe the humor. But I think just everything is right on point. Everything is executed how it should be executed. I think that's also something worth commending, just something that's executed so well. Also, I do want to credit the animation, especially like some of the smoke and stuff, and the water looks really rich, clouds look nice. The birds maybe less so. I think maybe the animation on the birds at points looks a little bland. There are other elements, I think, that are nice looking that you can give credit to. I thought Boom was fun. That seems to be one of the lower rated ones that I liked. Some other people thought, it kind of looked like a generic sort of DVD extra short. That may be the case, but I don't know. It worked for me. I had a good time. Number 2, Pachyderm. I just want to read the Letterboxd tagline because it just sounds so mysterious. Like every summer, Louise stays at her grandparents in the countryside for a few days during the holidays. It will snow at the height of summer, and a monster is going to die. Gave this one an 85. Immediately, when the short started, I was struck. Well, actually, I guess it's not immediate because the credits, but after the credits, I was struck by just how soft and warm the animation looked. For some reason, it was giving me like some Terraria vibes, but like a little bit softened with some of the decorations inside the house, I think. The animation's a big plus for me in this one. I also very much like the sense of scale in certain parts of it. You'll certainly know what I mean when you see it, and how that plays into the way the story unfolds. I think the mood progresses pretty much perfectly. Again, I don't want to give many details because it'll become clear soon enough when you watch it, but the direction it chooses to take, it builds at a nice pace. There are some nice little visual accents here and there. There's a certain part of it where there's like a red light shining under the door, and that looks great in comparison to the surroundings. There is a certain underwater scene which looks so dreamy and peaceful and wonderful. The one main thing I have some trouble with is I don't like the way the main girl is animated. Again, it kind of feels like her movements are a little chunkier than they should be in context, I think. I think that's probably the best way to describe that. But I mean, honestly, besides that, I'm pulling really hard for this one. This is one of the two, like I said at the beginning. I would be really happy if this managed to win. Number 1, 95 Senses. I'm going to skip the description on this one. I went in totally blind, without a clue or anything like that. Blew me away. This is a 95 for me. I'm going to rewatch this just to see if maybe anything sticks out to me about it the second time. But yeah, I mean, honestly, this short impacted me emotionally in a way that few other movies I have ever seen have impacted me. I am going to go into spoilers here. I'm not going to say anything more about it because, like, if you want to watch it, just go watch it right now without learning anything else about it. So I'm going to start spoilers right now because I kind of want to talk about a few specific things in it. For one, there's just a general note animation. Like, it does the same sort of style that reminded me of, like, My Year of Dicks last year, where it's switching animation styles between sections. It's a nice way to mix things up, have some visual variety. I thought all of the sections looked pretty nice and distinctive and everything like that. I guess maybe if I had to nitpick a little bit, the second one wasn't my favorite, but I also don't have a specific issue with it. I just didn't love it aesthetically as much. So first, I kind of want to start out by addressing a criticism that some people might have of it. I think it would be possible for someone to walk out of the short and think, why should I feel bad for this character? Like, this character manslaughtered a family. Why should I feel bad? He's getting what he deserves, etc., etc. I do think that's fair. In this case, I would say being sympathetic doesn't mean you don't think he deserves the punishment. I think you can still be sympathetic to the way someone's life has unfolded, even if the way it's unfolded is their fault. I don't think that the only tragedy in this story is him, of course. The only tragedy it also isn't the family dying in an accident, essentially. Both things are tragic. But to me, like, the fact that the family died, that doesn't need any explanation. That's a tragedy. Like, that's obviously tragic to have people die because someone was stupid enough to set fire to, something because they were upset. I think that's clear and obvious enough. I think the fact that this man threw his own life away, basically, threw away the opportunity at any life experiences and any happiness, and, like, as he expounded on in that section about touch, like the opportunities to have a life, kids, wife, etc., I mean, throwing away your own life is also pretty tragic. Like, we only get one. We only get limited time. What he did with his rightfully put him in a place where he really couldn't experience any of the beauty and joy in life that a lot of us do get to experience. So I guess to me, I think that there's an opportunity there to explore a slightly different perspective, but that doesn't necessarily get us around the fact that he deserves what he does. And I think what the movie does to get around that, to kind of like put us in his shoes, in his corner, at least this is the way it worked on me. And this is also part of the reason why I emphasized, like, don't look up anything about it. Because to me, like, the moment where he sets fire to crickets and where we realize, like, oh, like, he's in jail, like, he is serving his life sentence, he's about to get his last meal, all that stuff, that just hits you so suddenly. Where it just kind of like shocks you into the state of mind, like the suddenness with which he upended his own life. So in a sense, it almost just like rips you into his new state of circumstances. It might just not give you time to consider what he's done if you're kind of like in lockstep with the movie. Now, that doesn't mean it's like cheating or anything like that, or that it's trying to kind of like get you to like, you know, ignore the dead family or anything like that. I think it's just hard to not focus on obvious injustice, I suppose, the obvious tragedy. And that by kind of abruptly introducing you into his new perspective, his new life in prison, it doesn't give you time to think like, wait, but isn't the other thing a bigger tragedy? Because of course he has killed multiple people. Those people are dead. Those people also don't have a chance at experiencing all the good things in life. But to me, that's not as interesting an exploration as exploring someone who has like self-sabotaged so hard that they have also basically killed themselves and given themselves no hope. So, I don't know. To me, it's not diminishing the death of the family. It's just trying to explore something a little different that might be harder to get on board with. And in order to get on board with, they kind of shock you with this sudden turn of events. And I'm fine with that because I think it was executed really well. I think the sadness that he's experiencing is not invalid just because he did something bad, horrible, heinous in the past. You know, anyone dying is tragic. And the fact that he's dying after having wasted his entire life because he's a moron, I think that's still tragic, and I think that's worth exploring. So yeah, the nominations are out. 3 of these, 95 Senses, Pachyderm, and Letter to a Pig, those are all nominated. I've not seen the other 2 yet. Actually, I don't remember which 2 the other ones were. You know, whatever. I'll try and track them down beforehand if I can find them anywhere. Again, we'll be pulling pretty hard for 95 Senses and Pachyderm. Love both of those. If Letter to a Pig wins, I wouldn't be upset or anything. That's certainly a fine pick. But I have my preferences. Like, especially would love to see 95 Senses win. I hope it impacts some other people the way it impacted me. It seems to be one of the higher rated ones on this list, so maybe other people like it as much as well. That's a wrap up for the animated shorts that I've seen. I hope if you guys check them out, you enjoy them.